Guys, Tomboy601, and today we are continuing our series of basically building the new Azure lane commanders into what we think could be their best possible build and trying to figure out if they are actually worth the time and the money to go after. Today we have Azure lane Montpellier, and we're doing something a little bit different. Now, initially when I look at Montpellier, I say, you know what? It's essentially a Norm Scott. I use Norm Scott on my American light cruisers. I obviously have to use Montpellier on a light cruiser. Hell, there's even a Montpellier light cruiser that is out for this event. But then I thought about the scenarios in which I want to build and the scenarios I intend to encounter, and I realized that actually Baltimore and the heavy cruisers would probably be the better thing. Now, if you don't know what Montpellier's shtick is, I'll go ahead and throw her up on the screen. The key thing to think about is that third skill tree tier, and that is her all-out assault, the most important thing being her incoming fire dispersion. And because of that, we can go ahead and essentially build her for an anti-incoming fire dispersion build, which means maybe in theory, you're going to take less hits. So what have we done? Well, of course, we're still using that all-out skill, and then we are running Vine, who is a British destroyer commander, if I recall correctly, who helps with incoming fire dispersion, and we are also using Azuma, who slightly buffs incoming fire dispersion as well. And additionally, we have a full maxed out camo. So with all of those factors figured in, currently as this build sits right now, we are at a 17% incoming fire dispersion chance, but you could boost that up into the 20s, especially because we don't have Montpellier currently maxed out, and you can get another 2.5% out of her, boosting this up to about 20%. So there is room to improve on this build, but I did not want to go in and invest. Now, you may be saying, Tommy, why did you choose the heavy cruiser as opposed to the light cruiser? And that's mainly because of the style of play that a heavy cruiser promotes as opposed to a light cruiser promotes. Light cruisers, they tend to, one, go kind of horizontal behind an island. And if there's one thing you can kind of notice about shells in this game, is that dispersion goes more horizontally than it does vertically. So if you have a incoming fire dispersion build, you want to be vertical. You want the shells to be coming in at the same angle as the ship, not perpendicular to the ship. And the other thing you want is range, because the farther away you are, the bigger the gaps in between the shells are going to be. So the light cruisers, while they do have decent range, I don't think they have as good of range as a Baltimore and as accurate a fire, and we are going to be giving up a lot of what would tend to be an accuracy build on these commanders. We're not running Norm Scott. We're not running any of the dispersion things that would usually help us with our outgoing accuracy, and as a result, we kind of have to make that trade-off, and that's kind of the downside to this build, is just the lack of accuracy that you end up having. Anyways, right here I think is the best illustration of the incoming dispersion working, and I don't even know if it's working that well. I think we are seeing from the battleships, we'll get a good salvo towards us here and there, and you can see they are, I think, struggling to hit us. We should kind of be dead in the water, especially given where we are, but we're not really getting many hits from them. But that's because we're at like 15 kilometers range, right? We have a decent thing. We are moving, we are maneuvering, we are looking at the shells coming in, trying to avoid them. But is that all worth the cost of giving up the firepower or the maneuverability or the reload and all that? Maybe. I don't really think so. But if you're seeing this footage and going, man, I really like that, then it might be for you. But here's my thing. I think in this game, especially when you buff these kind of invisible stats, like incoming fire dispersion, that's an invisible stat, right? We can all agree that it's not like the game shows you, oh, if you didn't have this, this is where those shells would have landed. So there's an inherent bias you get when building for these kinds of builds. And I feel like there's an even greater one where if you have fully maxed into this sort of thing, and you aren't you aren't someone who got these things for free like I did, because as you probably know, I'm one of the community contributors, and therefore I do get given the commanders for free. But if I had spent my own money, I feel like there's a incoming confirmation bias of whenever a shell misses, going, yeah, it missed because I built for anti-dispersion. It totally wouldn't have hit. It totally would have hit if I didn't have all the anti-dispersion coming in, because you want to feel like your build's working, right? But does it work? Maybe. I mean, I give Wargaming the benefit of the doubt. I'm sure on the back end, when the dice roll, there is a much higher dispersion chance build roll than what would normally be there. I'm not saying Wargaming is cheating us out of anti-dispersion, but as a mechanic to build into, is it effective on cruisers? I don't think so. I tend to run the anti-dispersion stuff on the destroyers, and that's mainly because with destroyers, they are so small that any additional growth to that spread is going to end in your benefit. Like, being able to dodge shells in a destroyer at the further ranges, especially in things like gunboats, that does absolutely help. Now, once you get into ships that are the size of cruisers and battleships, does building for anti-dispersion actually make any sense? Probably not. And I think that's one of the things you kind of have to realize. Is this a fun match that we're having here? Yeah. Are we being the most effective ship? I don't think so. I mean, you can see we've kind of just been kind of hugging this middle set of islands in the background. We're trying to do our duty. We're a radar cruiser playing mid, so we are trying to deal with these destroyers. Of course, Brandenburg pops up right here, and if he was paying attention, probably could have blapped us out of existence, but he's not paying attention, and we have a full salvo of AP, so goodbye, Brandenburg. But coming in and kind of protecting this mid area and kind of being a torpedo fence, or whatever we want to call it, looking out for torpedoes and trying to counter the destroyers to make sure they don't too hard solo charge into the rest of our guys. Are we being effective? Yes, but then I think you look at when we do have shots on them, and we look at the dispersion we have on those shots, and you go, ooh, no, I definitely miss my accuracy influences on my commanders, because some of these shots are real rough, and they are not doing the kind of damage, nor am I hitting the kind of shells that I'm used to hitting with the Baltimore. And that's the thing. You are giving up accuracy. You are giving up things for this anti-dispersion build, and I don't think it's overall worth it. So that's my little rant on it. We'll continue talking about the game, because it does end up being a pretty fun game. Anyways, we've gone ahead. We know that a destroyer is out behind that island. We're going to go ahead and push in. We have our sonar running, and we're just going to try to push in, be the thorn in the side of these ships. We pop our radar because we know Shima's out there, and now we'll see just the kind of the little wonky dispersion here and there. We do need to be careful, because that was one set of torpedoes from the Shima. We are well aware Shima has 3 torpedo launchers, and well, there's the second set of torpedoes. We are trying to get around, making it so that he can't use this island for cover, and thankfully that allows us to also dodge these torpedoes. We lose our radar, which is to be expected after that amount of time. He drops spot, and we're just going to kind of nestle in right here. We can see the remnant of the enemy team kind of all clustered up in their cap. We can use the left side of this island as cover, and then sort of pie out the corner to get shots on whatever ships we want to. And we have pretty decent protection. We're going to go kind of nose in, just because we want to be able to be nose into any torpedoes that are going to come from that smoke, because we're well aware there's 2 destroyers over there. And torpedoes can absolutely come from them, and we don't want to be too perpendicular to that smoke, because then maneuvering out of the way of torpedoes will be an absolute issue. But right now we have a decent little spot that, yes, the Iowa could hit us, but he has bigger fish to fry, and we have a good place just to kind of chunk out enemies, where only Iowa and those destroyers kind of have angle on us, and those destroyers obviously a little more preoccupied with the 2 battleships that are pushing in, as they should be. We see one of those destroyer pops up, Z-23. We're going to go ahead, switch over, and try to get a couple of hits on him. And shots out on him. Looking really good shots right there, but sadly, just big overpens and a couple of shatters, which is a little weird on a destroyer, but, you know, such are the game mechanics as they are. Anyway, Iowa starting to go low on health. Conqueror, who was absolutely broadside, got deleted, and now this poor Suzuya is the only target left for anyone who can see on the enemy team. We're going to go ahead, push full in, because, well, it's only 2 destroyers, and we are a radar and sonar cruiser, so we can easily help with picking them off. Suzuya, broadside to us, absolutely beautiful. We pick up the Confederate medal right there, just because we've kind of taken pot shots at every single ship during this game, which, hey, I'll never turn down getting a Confederate medal, and we will now push in. And if we look, our team has formed essentially a closing net around these destroyers. They do not have anywhere to go. We've loaded HE, Z-23, shots out, and this is one of those shots where you're like, oh, only one hit. Yep, we definitely gave up on our accuracy for this build. But hey, it felt like it was slightly effective. I just don't think it is something I would recommend running overall. Anyways, Z-23 is now down, and there is only that Shimakaze left. We are spotted, so we're going to kind of push into the cap. We can see we're not in the cap with the Shima, but he's probably not too far out. We go ahead, pop the radar. Sadly, he's not within the radar detection radius immediately, but after a little bit, I think we're going to end up picking him up and overall just finishing him off. But guys, that's Azure Lane Montpellier. Like I said, I don't think it's really worth the money to build into. And that's unfortunate, but hey, that's where we are. Guys, if you liked the video, go ahead, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. See ya.